A few of you have asked me if I have any tips about finding stories on the streets. In case you don't know me, my name is Jaidyn and I'm a writer and a poet, and I write a lot of my stories and poetry about things that I see and people that I meet on the streets. I've been doing this for a while now, and I have notebooks filled with notes and poetry I've written while observing society from a bench or a step somewhere in the city. People watching is a great form of inspiration. Firstly, because it forces you to find something to focus on and explore it in any way you want to interpret it, almost like a prompt. And secondly, because using your street as an inspiration will bring a level of truth and grit to your writing that you couldn't just pull from your imagination without some grounds in the real world first. This will make your writing more believable. What I like to do is go onto the street and find somewhere high up to sit with a good view of the people around me. I like to watch what happens in a place over a period of time. I watch the people and the trams, the cars. I observe the busyness, the general mood of the people. I like to consider what's going on in the world at that particular moment and see if maybe it can factor into the expressions of the strangers passing by around me. I wonder about their personal lives, their loves and their fears, their hopes and their flaws. I take note in my diary, sometimes in narrative form, where I string together elements of my day, using characters inspired by strangers to tell a story. Sometimes I even insert myself into the narrative, or take the point of view of one of these strangers. And sometimes my notes are just bullet points and random scrolls, all of which I can turn into poetry or stories later. And sometimes I write poetry directly into my notebook about the things I'm observing as they're happening. Spontaneous poetry. Not all of the stories you tell have to be completely true. You can use real-life observations as a skeleton for a totally fictional piece. I often use a method I call the embellishment method, where I exaggerate or take creative liberties with real things to make them more intense, or more vivid, or more interesting, because sometimes real life is monotonous and not everybody wants to read about that. But at the same time, I think it's quite beautiful to show the reality and the truth of monotonous life, like walking to and from work or waiting in line for a sushi roll. A couple of days ago, I interviewed my friend Craig. Craig lives homeless here in Melbourne, and over the last 2 years I've grown to learn more about him, listening to his stories and supporting him with some banter or some spare change if I have any. I even let him keep some of the books that I lent him because I've already read them, so why would I need them? This is the interview. So today Archer and I are heading onto the streets to interview Craig, who is also known as Turtle.
I was born on an army base down near Mornington. Moved around bases when I was younger, army bases, and then we settled in the northern suburbs. Dad bought a house out that way. Then was getting in a bit of trouble when I was younger, with the law. Ended up in juvenile detention for 6 months. I only ended up doing, I think it was 2.5 months altogether out of it, good behaviour and all that. And after that I said, I'm going to pull my head in, and I did. I promised myself I'd never get locked up again, and I never have been. Yeah, so it was a good thing in a way. It made me, change my ways. I was working as a bartender, had my own flat, money in the bank. I met a girl from a country town. We got together, she convinced me to go live with her. So I quit my job, left my flat, spent all my money moving there to be with her. She turned out to be really violent and was hitting me all the time. And when I'm saying hitting, I'm not talking about just slapping, I'm talking about she knew how to actually throw a punch. I could deal with her hitting me, but it got worse and worse, and then she stabbed me with a screwdriver, so it was like enough's enough. Came back to Melbourne and had nothing to come back to. No job, no money, no home. Right. I've lost track of how many years it's been, but it's close to 9 years, 8, 9 years, maybe more. Sleeping in the alleyway around the corner. So each day consists of waking up wherever I'm sleeping, get up, start lugging this around. It's not bloody light either. Then I'll walk all day, ask every person I walk past, ask if they can help out with any change, and try to make $25 for a homeless shelter. Most nights I'm not making it, but I've got to try. All those people you ask, you're going to be lucky if you get a handful of people to actually stop and listen. Most of them are just going to either ignore you or stick their hand in your face or whatever. And yeah, and even when you do get someone to stop these days, 99% of people are using their phone or card to pay for everything now. So you're going to be very lucky to make enough. A few weeks ago, I was asleep in the alleyway. I woke up and my hand had swollen up. And as you can see the difference there, one's got fingers. And the weird thing is it goes away and then it comes back and then it goes away and then it comes back. So you've got to go get it checked out, but no Medicare card. So what do I do? It's very hard to keep track of dates and when you saw someone last or whatever, because every day is the same, it becomes one big memory, like a one big day. So yeah, I mean, I bump into people, I go, oh, I bumped into you last week, and they're like, nah, it was about a year ago. It's like, shit, you know? But yeah, it's pretty much Groundhog Day. Get up, try to survive, do the same thing. The only thing splitting it up is maybe a birthday or when you make enough for a room for the night or something out of the ordinary happens. But other than that, yeah, it's just one big blur.
Today's experience talking to Craig, I don't know, it was like mind-blowing, kind of. It was the things that he sort of spoke to us about, like I already knew, and I feel like most people know that stuff, like the dangers of being homeless and, you know, what it's like and sleeping in alleyways and stuff. We kind of get taught that stuff at school or, you know, online or, you know, modules for work or whatnot. But hearing it straight from the source kind of, I don't know, put like a different layer of like pain onto it. Like it made it real. It made it really real. And so I was pretty thankful for having the chat with him.
I was first introduced to Craig probably about 2 years ago, and at the time I only knew him as Turtle. So Craig has actually managed to slip into my creative process from time to time, and so he has become a character in some of my writing. I've actually shown Craig what I wrote about him, and when I showed it to him, he was surprised at first, and then he was very elated to be written about, and he liked the way that I'd written about it, and he thought it was honest and true. So it was a really nice feeling seeing Craig like the piece that I wrote about him. So this is a story that I have written about my friend Craig. There's a turtle on the train on the first day it hasn't rained. He looks exactly the same as always. Long scraggle of hair and beard, fraying black peaked cap, shabby brown coat full of holes. His shell hangs heavy from his back. That hiking backpack shell, the home he drags along with him all day, every day like clockwork. He waddles up to an empty booth as the doors close. I call out to him, "Craig," and he spots me. There's a mutual understanding between us. He approaches my booth, sits his bag down on one of the seats, and then settles into the seat across from me, resting a tattered Mike Tyson biography on his knee. "What are you doing on this line?" he asks me. I tell him I've been going out this way to see a girl. It isn't my usual train line. Usually I run into him on the streets while he's coal biting for enough money for a room. He taught me that phrase, coal biting. "How's the coal biting?" I ask. "Shit," he admits. "No luck today. I'm crashing with my mate tonight in St. Albans though. He lets me stay sometimes, lets me leave some of my stuff there. I only stay until I overstay my welcome, and then it's back to sleeping in the alleyway." "It's good your mate has a place for you," I said. "Sometimes is better than nothing." He wears the same smile as always. The smile of someone in pain, who smiles anyway, who just shrugs and chuckles at his own situation. He smiles because he still has hope for a different future. I believe he will reach that different future, because he believes it. I've been in the alley for 2 weeks now. It's bloody rough. It's never safe at night, mate. It's scary. I'm not gonna lie. It's bloody scary. The stations blur past and the train chatter dissipates as Turtle tells me stories about his homelessness. He tells me the government tried to make it illegal to sleep rough on the streets a few years back, clearing up encampments in public parks and tossing out the tents on the streets. Unsightly is how he described those encampments. That was what the government called it anyway. Turtle and I agreed this wasn't a solution to homelessness, just a band-aid, a cover-up, so that tourists didn't see what was really going on. No one who has the capacity to help people actually ever wanted to do it. Sitting there with him, I realized Turtle is my friend. He isn't just a stranger I sometimes speak to, he is a friend, simply because I gave him the chance. I never judged him for his past, never freaked out when he told me he'd been in trouble with the law, had gone to juvenile detention in his youth, because I could see he'd changed. He's no troublemaker. He's a wounded struggler. He's a good man. A kind man. So that particular excerpt is actually from my new book, The Street Poet, which is a poetry novel. It's very experimental, but I just thought I would share that piece with you because that is an example to me of how you can tell a story inspired by something found on the streets. In this case, the something that I found was it was Craig, who is a wonderful human being who is full of hope despite his circumstances, and I really wanted to capture that in my writing. So this is just one of the ways that you could write about the streets or use the streets to write a story. You could get to know a stranger and have a conversation with them and ask to hear their story, and you could use their story to inspire yours. Or you could just observe people and come up with your own stories. Or you can use scenery and settings and moments in time as the backdrop of a story that you're writing, and that backdrop could be something that you witnessed or saw. So there are so many ways that you can use the street as an observer to influence your writing. But my favorite way is using the wisdoms that I learn from the people that I meet on the streets to tell a story.